as we said earlier, we're going to be taking a deep dive into immigration all this week, and it's going to culminate with a special show on Thursday where we spend the entire hour exploring immigrant communities. But right now, we thought we'd bring you up to speed on immigrant communities and specifically what they're reading and writing. But BK Live, unpacked but unsettled is what we're calling it. First slide up today, where they're from and what they speak. 37% of New York City's population is foreign-born, meaning, of course, that they come from a different country. In this instance, more than 200 countries from around the world where New Brooklynites and New Yorkers hail from. And fewer than 25% of foreign-born residents report speaking only English at home. So that means fully 75% of folks right in our city speak English and a few other languages in their home, and sometimes not even English primarily. Let's take a look at some of those numbers of foreign-born total populations. This is the breakdown by borough, and you can see Brooklyn has a pretty good showing there. Some 37.4% of our total population is foreign-born. We only get bested by our neighbors over in Queens that have about 48.5% of their total population foreign-born as of 2013. And we're looking at you, Staten Island. You only have about 21% of your population is foreign-born. I guess they'd rather be here in Brooklyn. Haha. Well, moving on just a little bit deeper, where are New York City's immigrants living? This, of course, is a map of the city, and these numbers in the deep orange represent populations of 40,000 or more clustered into these different districts. This is from the New York City Department of City Planning. You can see uptown in the Heights, Washington Heights up there, Lin-Manuel. Of course, there's a lot of immigrant population there, but we're not so slouchy down here in Brooklyn, where there are great blocks of immigrant communities there in the 30s, 40s, 20. We hover around there. But this area right in the center, under 9,000, it's very white there. Maybe that's the cemetery around Sunset Park, I'm thinking. But all of those people are immigrants, too. But moving on, I'm going to take you one more slide here. What are these people who are foreign-born reading? There are approximately 270 community and ethnic publications in the metro area. And among those, there are 18 daily newspapers that come out every day. That daily miracle of the newspapers, they fall into that category of community and ethnic media in various languages representing people from the diaspora. So that is a look at some of the media that we're going to be exploring in the A block.
The story of immigration to Brooklyn is seen on practically every street corner, restaurants, bodegas, hair salons, you name it. But the story of immigration is also seen in the vast number of media outlets outside the mainstream. CUNY's Center for Community and Ethnic Media says there are more than 200 ethnic media publishers focusing on New York's communities of color.
That's right, and all this week we're going to be taking a close look at immigration and its promises and the challenges that come along. Thousands of New Brooklynites may be unpacked, but still feel a bit unsettled. But of course, news from home in their native language can help ease that disorientation and help us explore the importance of media outlets connecting with immigrant communities. We're joined by two publishers. We want to welcome back our friend, Milton Allimadi. He's the editor and publisher of the Black Star News. Great to see you again, sir.
Thank you. My pleasure.
And Mujeeb Lodhi is the president and publisher of Pakistan News. Welcome, first time. What took you so long? All right, glad to see you.
Welcome to both of you. Milton, let's start with you. What
Sure.
made you decide to be a publisher?
Very good question. I was actually accidental. When I graduated from journalism school at Columbia, I did an internship with the Wall Street Journal, and then I was a freelancer for the New York Times for a couple of years. And I did a lot of coverage in quote-unquote ethnic communities, actually. And then I discovered a paper called The City Sun, which was based right here in Brooklyn. It was phenomenal. Did great investigative journalism, and I got attracted to that. So I ended up working for The City Sun. The publisher was a bit older, and when he had some health issues, and he had a stroke, sadly, unfortunately, the paper collapsed as his health declined. And I said, you know what, this is fun. I gotta continue this kind of publication. So I drew up a business plan, and I started sending it out to folks I knew had money, and many of them sent me letters and said, this sounds like a great idea, good luck. But I kept knocking on the door. Eventually I did get a check from Camille Cosby, and that's how I started the Black Star News.
Wonderful.
So, Mr. Lodhi, looking at the general landscape of news, we always hear about newspapers are struggling and the old media, but there are a lot of like giant corporations, like Murdoch is going around buying up local newspapers.
Yeah.
So in that kind of environment, how do you sustain while doing specifically ethnic media as well?
You know, after 9/11, we had a little bit problem about the advertisement. We lost more than 40% business.
Yeah.
But with hard work, we are doing really good nowadays. Because after 9/11, our community is getting very strong. We have a lot of activities, you know, like every single Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Yeah.
We have different activities in Brooklyn, in Long Island, in Queens. So we have a lot of business because our community is very active. You know, I started my newspaper in '95. Before I was working for New York Times for time being like 6-7 months. Then I worked for Newsday for 16 years. But on that time in '90s, we don't have any paper.
Yeah. So
here.
what's your community? Who are the people who read your paper?
Yeah, basically, this is a Pakistani community,
Gotcha.
main. But there's a lot of Indians. They born before Pakistan, India separate.
Right.
They know our language.
Right, the commonality.
Yeah, we
between
have
the cultures.
we speak same, but the language when we write and read is little different.
Yeah.
But a lot of Indians right now, they still read our newspaper because they know how to read.
Yeah.
So we have a very big community. But again, we are doing good. In our community, my newspaper, sometimes we don't know which ad we have to place and which ad we don't have to place because we have too many pages, you have to pay too much money on printing
Yeah.
costs, so we are okay.
Yeah.
Milton, how are you guys sustaining?
Well, we don't cater exclusively to African immigrants. We wanted to find a balance to be able to broaden our potential market of advertisers. So in addition to African immigrants, we also actually do a lot of domestic U.S. coverage. In fact, I would say 80% of our coverage is domestic U.S. news. So issues like police brutality,
Yeah.
you know, we would cover that, of course. The upcoming election, we would cover that aggressively as well. So in a way, we are able to broaden our pool. We get some of the advertising that papers like the Amsterdam News gets, and then we also get some of the advertising that goes to papers that are focused exclusively to African immigrants, like the African Sun Times, for example. So that's the formula we want to we try using.
Yeah.
But I have to add, and I'm sure that my colleague will agree with me, we need to get more city advertising. We don't get enough advertising.
But listen, we just had
from the city.
Julie Minnan was here, the commissioner was here, and even Scott Stringer. They talk about, okay, we have these things we're rolling out. We just gave $1 million to CUNY to strengthen community and ethnic press. So what's the trickle down?
Maybe
they showed up with their check yet?
Maybe it's rolling out, but I know
He's formulating something over
Stringer
there.
has been very good
Yeah.
in making
Maybe
pronouncements,
CUNY has,
and I
but
hope
we
the city
don't have
listens
it
to that.
right now.
Yeah.
Maybe they are in the pipeline.
Right.
But still, practically, I didn't see any ads from Scott or any city ads.
So how do they, because everyone talks about, you know, we're a city of immigrants. I just did the numbers. How do they reach out to you to reach out to those communities when we want people to get NYCIDs, when we want people to register their vote, GEDs, all of these things that the city provides?
Actually, CUNY doing very good job.
Yeah.
Last couple of months, they invite us with the immigration head of the people. Then Mayor de Blasio also have a advisor. They also have a kind of meeting in CUNY University rooms. But they invite mostly all ethnic media. They get all the information.
Yeah.
But practically, I did not see any.
The ads are slow coming.
Yeah, still, we are depending mostly our community.
Yeah.
Advertisement like a restaurant, grocery store, and you know, but my newspaper, why I bring my newspaper in this community, because before we have a 1 or 2 paper before, but mostly news was only for from Pakistan.
How do you do the split? Milton said he does a sort of 80-20 between mixing in and bringing news from home. So what's your balance?
I want my newspaper Pakistani Americans.
Okay.
Mostly American news. We live here. Our people should know what's going on in the election. Our people should know what the mayor doing.
Yeah.
Our people should know what's the actually Medicare, the facilities. But mostly I see the other newspaper don't do like that because they don't know how to do it. But I think in America, every ethnic media should bring their community facility, especially facilities about the American news, with related to their ethnic community news.
Gotcha.
Milton, how are you guys on the other split, the print-online transition, right? So are you guys still heavily read in print? Are you online?
We're primarily moving online now because obviously that relieves the overhead. But there is still actually a base for print media. I won't say maybe for publications like the Daily News or New York Times because the overhead is really high. But for segmented print, I think the market is still very good. And as you mentioned, one of the individuals that's recognized that is actually Rupert Murdoch. And a couple of years ago, somebody who actually works for him met with me. Yeah. He invited me for a meeting.
You didn't sell out. You're still here.
Yeah, funny. Was interested in our partnership.
Gotcha.
But the formula that we discussed didn't seem to be to my advantage. So that's the only reason why I didn't partner with them.
He'll call again.
But the market is good, and it's still it's growing because African immigrant population is growing rapidly. It's doubling every 10 years now. Yeah. It's almost 2 million in the U.S. 10 years ago, it was about 900,000. Oh, wow. And 10 years before that, it was about 470,000. So every 10 years, it's doubling.
Exponentially, yeah.
Absolutely, meaning the market is always going to be good. And in fact, this is also a hint to other potential investors out there. The ethnic print media is still good.
So before we've got about 3 minutes left, I wanted to ask you guys both work with that split of news back home and keeping people informed of news they can use here. What are some of the stories that are underrepresented or underreported in the larger media landscape that maybe people in your respective communities are interested in or would like to hear more about, but they just fall under the radar of the Post and daily newses of the world?
Okay, you want to go first?
Actually, my paper is not only New York-based paper.
Gotcha.
We have like 6 editions New York. We print in New York, Chicago, Houston, LA, and Canada. Cool. We focus those news, those community needs, especially like election right now. What the Trump's is saying something against ethnic community or favor for ethnic community. What the hell are you doing? So we don't support any candidate, but we are putting all the news as it is to the community newspapers. Let the people have to decide it. So whatever the hot topics going on, because our paper is a weekly paper, not daily paper. Yeah. So we have to make sure which news is most important, which subject is most important. Right. We bring those news in front page, and we have like 4 community pages. Those 4 pages every week we bring all over America and Canada ethnic community activities wherever our community live, like in Chicago. Yeah. All the Chicago activities, same as Houston, same as Washington. There's a lot of White House, whenever they have a briefing, we also carry those news also.
Okay, I just wanted to add that we focus on some of the big stories like the pressure on African immigration to Europe and then eventually the United States. We've been seeing stories about people drowning during trying to cross the Mediterranean. And we also look at the economic side of that because often that's not mentioned in these stories. We just see images of people drowning. And Germany is now doing an interesting thing. It's realized that they can start helping with some of the economic conditions in Africa before people start making that desperate trip. So in fact, Chancellor Merkel did a trip last week to discuss investment opportunities with 3 or 4 African countries in order to decrease the pressure and the demand for this desperate immigration.
Excellent. Milton, we're running out of time here. Please mention your new book.
Oh, yes, absolutely. The Hearts of Darkness, How White Writers Created the Racist Image of Africa. And what I did in this book is I went back into 2 centuries of Western writing about Africa, from the 18th century to the 20th century. And I critiqued, for example, the early so-called explorers that went to Africa, because they're the ones that originally depicted the negative stereotypical images of Africa. So what I do is I examine to what extent that earlier depiction still influences contemporary coverage of Africa. And it's available on theheartsofdarkness.org. Only through there. I'm not going to make it available through Amazon.
Well,
All right.
before you guys get out of here, tell us where your life's work is available. You're at Black Star News.
Absolutely, blackstarnews.com. And we're on Facebook, we're on Twitter as well. And my personal handle is @Allimadi.
All right, get that plug in there.
We have a daily Pakistan News newspaper. Every week we develop all the newspaper pages so you can see. We have an English edition also, so you can read both way.
Phenomenal. Thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for being
Thank you
here.
both
Thank
for having
you so
us.
much for joining
Thank you
us.
again.